In developing country, in my experience, we use just elite in uh, foresight project. But as you said, they are very important. We should involve people more in the street, in uh, citizens, popular citizens, and anybody in society should involve to change the way to the future. Anybody, I sometimes I ask in from my participant in my workshop, uh, what do you think? I asked them, uh, what do you think uh, your grandmother, grandfather think about future? Did you have a conversation within your family about the future? Mostly they haven't any answer. Mostly they have talked about future in their family there. But it's very important. If you make node network of node in the society by the educated people, they can change the thinking of the future. I think educated people are the they have a important role to have a conversation to talk about the future. And I think I have a student who make a project, a research about the uh, game and technique to use for children to think of future. He was, she was, she has a degree in education,
Mm-hmm.
in of education.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, she met me to do uh, her project about future studies. And after a conversation, we reach a project about the children and teenagers. Uh, I think, I guess Schwartz, as you know, he was the famous people in future study. He had some books. He had done a project about teenager in the world, how they think about the futures in 1990, I guess. And I think these people, especially, I we can use the platform like LinkedIn or Instagram, Facebook, or other social network uh, to speed the conversation to talk about the futures.
Yeah, you know, I'm fascinated by this you have just said because I I have thought about this many times. Like, how can you involve in a deeply manner the, the common citizen, the people in the street, as I call them, uh, because in the academia or in the even in business, even in government, sometimes we have this foresight and futures studies knowledge, but how can we try to take this knowledge to more people, to the common people, maybe even people who doesn't go to a faculty or a university to learn about this. And this that you said, I think it's a core thing and it's a very important thing. This conversation at the family level, for instance,
Yeah,
the importance to talk with our families about the future.
I think I guess every society has its own culture to talk to conversation. For example, in Iran, we have gathering in uh, some special times. uh, religious event, for example, and we get together and we talk. In the past, in Iran, mostly they read some poet from great poet, some poem from great poet. People, some of them very famous in the world, like Hafez or Molavi, Maulana. They are very famous in the world. Mostly educated people or artists or Khayyam. You can search some of them. They has some translation in many languages. In past or as a culture or as a habitat, we read some book in the gathering family. Uh, One of them was Hafiz. He he had some poet about the as a profitable future. So he has some insight about future. Very as you know, uh, it's very uh, I think blind to metaphor as a metaphor, you know. Uh, but it make uh, a starting point to talk about future. You know, I use that. We uh, Most people, most country, as in Christian holiday, we have another uh, event in Iran. It's called Yalda. It is very famous in
Yeah.
Iran, and people join as a party and talk each other and read some poem from Hafiz, and mostly it can be as a starting point to talk about future. What do you think about your next years? What do you think about next 10 years? And what do you think about the future of the society? Or what the future about the city, or like that? And it's really uh, good. I have a good experience about, from this talking, from this conversation.
You have used this conversation in these kind of gatherings
Yeah,
to put in practice this.
yeah. I had done in my family, and as you know, they ask me as a futurist, what do you think about the future? What happened in future?
Great. Yeah, great. That's great. Yes, yes, you are the specialist, of course.
Yeah, mostly they ask me, what happened? What do you think about future of the market, the stock market? I have a nephew.
Mhm.
Uh, he mostly asked me, what do you think about pregnant? But when mostly we talk about technology, and I help them to make a positive insight about future. Mostly,
Mhm.
as you know, in my country now, there is a problem. A big problem in my society is the negative uh, insight of future, negative perspective of future. Most people are hopeless of future. You know, we have a long population, one long, uh, excuse
A
me,
large part of the population.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, many people, a large population immigrate from Iran,
Okay.
and
Mhm.
essentially we have a major share in the world as
Yeah.
a immigrant. It's very pain. As a part, as a citizen, when I see my society and young people who want to immigrate because they lose their hope about the future of this our society, and when they immigrate to develop country, they uh, they can uh, find a position to make a better future. As you know, developed country use mostly the immigrants as a low level uh, in society. They can't have a important role in society in when they immigrate. So it's my problem. It's a problem in the Middle East, especially in Iran. But a developing country, I know because it's a general. It's a general problem in developing country. I think.
Yeah, and you make me reflect a lot about this because even though we are so far away, I mean Mexico and Iran, we are very far away, but still, I think by listening to you, we have a lot of things in common in our societies. And first, this reference you do to the importance of family and the importance of community as channel to disseminate foresight and futures uh, knowledge and to disseminate a better narrative and a different, better narrative from the very nucleus of the family. That's very important because our cultures, I think, are very family centered, and the family is very important. I think that happens everywhere in the world, but in our cultures, that's I think a little different. That's very special, the importance and the nucleus of the family. So I think that's very important. And now this you said about the young people wanting to migrate to other countries because they want to look for more opportunities or for different opportunities and for a better vision of the future. They want a better future. That's why they are trying to do that. But I think that's exactly why our mission and our discipline is very important to make them believe and to make not only believe in it's not only a question of believing but a question of trying to become a reality, a better future for them.
Exactly.
That's very important, right? Departing from this that you are saying, Ali Reza, um, what is the preferred vision of the future you have for your own country,
Oh,
for Iran? What's your preferred vision of the future?
I hope we make a developing country to develop. I think I prefer to to make a democratic uh, governmental and make a strong society, civil society. Generally, I think the we 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 suffer from a lack of uh, social capital. You know, we in developing country we can trust each other in outside of the family. Family is very important in developing country because we just trust two member of the family. We can't trust other people. It's like it's a disease as a disease. It's a problem of the uh, lack of the social capital. It's very important. It's the driver of the developing process. Uh,
Uh, what what
trust.
would you say? I'm sorry. What would you say is the relationship then? I agree with you. We are lacking social capital, social fabric. We are lacking trust in general as societies, and that's why we are so close to our families. I think because that's our circle of trust.
Yeah,
And but the challenge is to find this outside this nucleus. Yeah, go ahead, please.
yeah. So the development is the result of the collaboration between strange people. You know,
Exactly.
the the social capital is very important. Is the main polar of the development. If we can to trust each other, we can to talk to each other, and we can to deal to can transaction, or it make easy to living with other people. We and the cost of the transaction, cost of the economy generally uh, make the cost of the transaction goes down. So I hope my society would be stronger and would have more social capital, and it's the core of the society, core of the development, I think. So, as a uh, practitioner or as a uh, um, scholar, I, I have many talk to to population. I am involved. I am involving in social media to talk to regular people, to ordinary people, to 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 change their mind, and then after uh, uh, long steps or a long way to future, we can improve our society to has its own rule in the world. You know, maybe we can make better condition to living for our society from this side.
This is wonderful. I am fascinated by what you are saying because I totally agree with you. This this about the family. No one says anything about that in Futures and Foresight. And they talk about education, and they talk about education and the importance of education for kids and for youngsters. And yeah, we talk about that, but about the importance of conversations with your family about the future, no one said anything like that. And I think that's a cultural characteristic that we have.
We are similar. Yeah, we
Yeah,
like.
because even though we have different religions, but
Yeah,
the religious part is very important because in my country religion is very very important, most of the people are Catholics or Christians, but this characteristic of gatherings and large meetings, especially with the most especially at the lowest economic levels,
Mm.
that's very important. The familiar gatherings, and families used to live in, I mean, in a small, very small apartments, so like 10 people or more in the same apartment, right? So so that kind of thing, it's so important from the point of view of developing countries like ours. So what I would like to do now, if you agree, um, I would like to do reference to your paper, one of your papers published in journals. You wrote a paper, I think it was in 2014, some years
Yeah.
ago, and it's called "The Main Key Challenges of Foresight Studies in Developing Countries." You wrote it with Ardeshir Saya Mofasali. You both wrote it together, and actually, that's how I found you, because I was looking for some literature about this, and it was fascinating for me that I found it in Iran,
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
and coming from someone some expert in a PhD in futures studies. So I want to ask you about this paper, and especially, what do you think are the main shortcomings that we are confronting in developing countries uh, about futures and foresight? I mean, we both agree that this is very important for our countries. But what are the shortcomings or the challenges that we are confronting in our countries to implement this in reality?
Yeah, exactly. I said something about that in our conversation in this interview. Uh, when we wrote that paper, we had some experience to do foresight in national level of country. We have some problem we see and we think uh, the difference between foresight in developed country and developing country, because the differences between this country in economy, in politics, in culture, and in technology. It make differences, some differences in thinking about future and in mind um, set about the future, and in use the technique or the models to make the map of the future. As you know, mostly or all of the foresight method are generated in developed country like Rand Corporation or other uh, country in West, but they develop their technique to solve their own problems, and their problems are different with our problems, because our culture, our economy, our technology situation, our corporation situation are very different from other country, from developed country. As a result, we should change our insight or perspective about foresight in developing countries. The main idea of this paper is that we should change our perspective about future study in developing country in uh, main, as you know, the, the epistemology of the foresight. The assumption of the foresight needs to change. We should more, uh, as you know, uh, uh, we don't use the technique, the method of future study exactly on what they are in original uh, format form. We should change the form, the progress, their step by our as you know, um, um, proper to our situation. You know, so we should have an open perspective about future study methods. I know most scholars, most academic in future study really orthodox. They are really they think this method are not they can't or they should just copy of them. I think
Yeah.
we customize to our problems. As a practitioner, we have a right to change, to customize, to manipulate, you know. For example, Mr. Khan, Mr. Schwartz, Mr. Uh,
I
Pierre
think, for
Roy,
instance, Sohail Nayatullah, he has a very different approach to
yeah,
foresight and features, right?
we should think, we should uh, uh, we should change our, as you know, thinking generally about the future studies. We should find out the basics, the foundation of the field, and then we can create or we redesign the method as we need, as we should. The main idea of this paper is that. So, in my country, many scholars are not agree. They don't agree with this. Some people mostly don't agree with this approach because they think we should just limit it, imitated them. We should. They think. I think their compression about the future is that it is really shallow, is really simply they simply they are they think they reduct you know the reduction of future studies not uh, right. You should you should think in foundation, in basics of the future study, and then you should generate. You should have a right. You have a right as a practitioner to generate, to redesign the method as the mm, the problem or the project needs. You know, it's very important. The main idea of this project was that.
Excellent, thank you. Which which takes me to my next question to you. How did you become close to foresight and futures studies? How did you decide one day that you were going to study futures and foresight? How was that process? Tell us, please, about that.
Yeah, I think it was just an accident.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a consultant in management. I have uh, uh, we we have many projects in strategic planning. And study planning is close to the future study, but they fields are different. I know now, but um when I want to continues my degree, and I think which field uh, is proper for me, or which field is interesting as again in if I want to involve again to academic stuff. And I that time I read some paper, but before that I was familiar with some popular futurists like Toffler. In Iran, Elvin Toffler is very famous. Was because his books are translated in Persian, and we had read his books, and we know him. He was really famous. Uh, But really, I think generally it's just as a random accident. I but after that I really loved it, and after we read much more than, and I read the history of future study uh, mm, deeply.
Mhm.
And at time in a in period of time I write some papers, and as I said, I read I read history, not from Iran, the future study in the world.
Mhm.
And uh, I was a lecturer, and I was a trainer in future study most a long time, and I had some workshops, and the feedback of the workshop make me more loving to future study. And now I really, as a specialist, working on future study. But thank to God,
Mhm. Mhm. Thank God.
uh, as a just it's not very planning, or it was not like other option in the professional. We just do step by step, and we get arrive the position, the situation what we are now.
But it happens a lot, you know. I have realized of that, as I have been interviewing people in different countries and with different professions, and this is very common. Most of times, I think, actually, most of times, it's
Yeah,
just like we didn't plan that. That's a paradox, right? But we didn't plan it.
but
It just
planning.
it's a paradox, but we didn't plan it, and it happened, and it's good that it happened, and that's really great because we can have this kind of conversation. We're almost finishing, Ali Reza. I have taken a lot of your time. Thank you very much. But before that, I want to ask about something. Um, when I was doing some research about programs of study in futures and foresight in the world, I discovered, I didn't know, but I discovered that Iran is is been a pioneer in futures and foresight. And actually, in your country, we have not one, but more uh, universities and institutions of education which have programs, graduate programs, and bachelor programs in futures and foresight. That's not very common, I must tell you, and you know that. I mean, uh, we only have a short number of official programs around the world. So. Uh, why do you think this happened? Why do you think this interest in foresight and futures was so relevant for your country, for Iran?
I think there are some reasons. One of them, higher education in Iran is really very important for government and society, and we uh, assign many resources to make our university, and we uh, generally like uh, to uh, get more degree in the universities level is a general point about the university. But this field is especially in this field are really very important for government in period of time. They think they can solve the problem with foresight and future study. They make some fields, and they invest in education of the uh, foresight and future study. Some important people has the rule in this decision. People like you make you I can you it may not you know them because they are not very famous in the world, but in national level they are very famous, and they have influence uh, in government. And last,
Can you give us some of their
yeah,
names?
yeah, Mr. Uh, Bayezid, Bayezid Mardukhi, he was a famous people, and Mr. Nazemi, Mr. Farasat Khan. Some of them are famous, and they are pioneer of the future study in Iran. Uh, they uh, they encourage government to invest in education of future study, and a research institute in Iran was developed in 1990, I guess, and they translate some books and to form to introduce future study to the society, and I think this was a main reason uh, to education to future studies education in Iran. And the other reason, or last one of them, but not least important, it was the need of professional people to write, to do foresight project in the organization. You know, many organizations in a period of time want to make uh, to do a project about futures study, or they want to write a vision about future of their own organizations, so they don't have professional people to do, so they encourage government to make to invest in education of future study in Iran. So, and a large population in Iran want to uh, get more higher degree of uh, education, higher education. They like the PhD or doctor title. It make more money for them. Their salary, their money, their job with higher. degree
Mhm.
are better. So they have as you know, they have incentives
Mhm.
to get higher degree in university. So this element, this reason, make our country as a center of the future study, I think, in the world. When I was studying the PhD degree, I searched and I found that it's not very popular in the world. Uh, there is there there are not many universities in the world have a PhD or a master degree in photo. I guess uh, five or uh, we can uh, call them. I guess in Australia there is a university in Finland, in Taiwan, in Hawaii, or
In South Africa, for instance, but there are just a
very,
short number of programs and PhD programs, for instance, very, very short number.
yeah, yeah. So because in West world, uh, some theorists, uh, some scientists believe that future study is not a field. It's not. It's a just research program. So we don't need to educate in university.
That's right.
Famous people like Van der Bell. He has a book and he tried to introduce this field as a degree in university, but he was not successful in America and USA. And people, just copy what happened in the developed country. And if USA or American university, if they have this degree, they other country copy or just imitate them. If they don't have this degree, other country, so like without any thinking, they don't have this degree.
So we're almost finishing now. Um,
Thank you
yeah,
very much.
last but not least, as you said before, what would you what would you like to say to people in Latin America on this side of the world about the future? Why is important for us to think about the future, Ali Reza?
I said before, but as you know, thank you, and I really happy to have a conversation with your people. I just say, uh, please think creatively about future. It's really helpful, I think, and without limitation, any limitation.
How can people interested in contacting you, how can they get in contact with you, or your email, your social media? Can you please tell us so we can tell the people where to find?
As you know, I have a LinkedIn ID and and I have a email Gmail, and in my LinkedIn is available for anyone to have a contact with me. I really welcome to have more connection with people. So anyone can contact with me directly from LinkedIn, and after that, I hope to more connection.
Thank you very much, Ali Reza, and I hope this is not the last time, huh?
Exactly. Yeah, we have another talking every time you want. I am ready to talk, not just for release in network. Everyone, you can please keep in touch.
Thank you very much.